Hi, my name is David. In this series, we're working through the Lord's Prayer, paying a lot of attention to what's in the deepest levels of meaning in the prayer. Now, here today, we find ourselves addressing the last two lines in the prayer, lead us not and deliver us from. And it's interesting how these two form sort of an either or kind of pair. It's like, is it this or is it that? And in this unit, we're going to discuss the first line, lead us not into temptation. And as you got to know, this line has lately caused a lot of confusion. It's caused a lot of consternation, debates all through the literature at the Vatican. So, let's take our turn and let's dive right into it. The way we typically read this line, it seems as though God could choose to lead us toward or confront us with the temptations of this temporal world. Our attention goes right to that word, temptation. So let's play this out. Assuming a lot of us are 12-steppers, God could confront us with the easy opportunity to take a drink of alcohol. Like the guy says, Joe, where you been, man? How about I get us a couple of shots? Talk about times. Tell me what's been going down. Or he might abandon us to old friends. Hey, Mary, life of the party. Glad you're okay. Heard you've been away. We got a line for you right over here if you want it. Come on, girl, let's celebrate. Or pull back a chair for us at the table. Hey, Tommy, you were good at this. Put a little change back in your pocket, man. Or you could tempt us in other ways, where we're lonely or we're vulnerable. Serious question. Does this really seem like something that this higher power would do? This Judeo-Christian God? This intelligible source of the universe of everything that we talked about and talked about? Lead us into the narrowness of the temporal world, really? Back to where we are dominated by time? Limited by our five senses, our visions all clouded over by social hierarchies and rules, and we're all prey to the 7 deadly sins. And then he just kicks us off the bus and says, "You're on your own now, buddy. Don't do anything I wouldn't do." Does that really make any sense at all? It doesn't make any sense to me. It just seems out of whack with this story if we keep seeing things like that. But let's go back to a story where God really did turn people around and send them in another direction. We've talked about the story of the Exodus, how it would be a story that those listening to Jesus of Nazareth, making this sermon at the Sermon on the Mount, would readily identify with. And by the way, since Christians willingly adopted the Old Testament as their preamble to the New Testament, Christians can identify with these stories just as well. So, we go to the book of Numbers, which is the 4th book of the Old Testament, 4th book of the Bible, sort of the tail end of the Exodus epic. And in Numbers, we go to chapter 14. God has led his chosen people to the brink of the promised land. I mean, they are right there. They got this little river they can wave across, see people over there. They can see what it looks like. It's yours. Take it, says God. But the Hebrews, at the last minute, become fearful, and they refuse to cross over into Canaan. And for the 10th time during the Exodus, they say they wish God had just left them back in Egypt, which, in terms of biblical imagery, means they wish they had just stayed in the old, dead-end temporal world. God gets mad. He asks Moses, "Are they not willing?" He fumes. "I won't let them in. Not into the promised land. They're not ready. Not yet." And he turns the Hebrews away. He turns them back out to wander through the wilderness. And in biblical imagery, the wilderness is like nowhere land. It is not the promised land. And he lets them wander there for the next 40 years. They have not proven themselves, God is telling Moses. 40 years later, under Joshua, the Jews try again, and this time they will be allowed in. Now, we all know it from the story from the song. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. That's this Joshua that we're talking about, and that the walls of Jericho are what the Jews had to go through to get into Canaan. Now, remember at the end of the last unit, after we sought forgiveness, both as an individual person and as a people, a nation of followers of God, we asked rhetorically, have we done enough? Have we proven ourselves worthy? And see, I believe we've arrived at that point in our analysis. So let's go back. We learned about God's name, Yahweh. We learned about his kingdom, thy kingdom come. And we want in. We asked for his help on the journey. Give us our daily bread. We asked and we gave forgiveness. We joined up with the rest of humankind, agape, to do his will here on earth. So what's up with this stuff about temptation? Well, in a situation like that, I take a look at the deeper meaning in the words. It's what I do. So, the line in St. Jerome's Latin Vulgate Bible from 400 AD reads, Et nenos educas in tentationem. Now hang on to that letter N in tentationem. It's going to be important. As we translate the word into English, this line reads, lead us not into temptation. I'll refer to the three most consequential translations of the prayer that I know of in the English language. The first was by a man named John Wycliffe. It dates back to roughly 1389. If you try and read it today, it's in Middle English that's so dense and far from modern English you can hardly decipher it. The second is the translation by William Tyndale in 1526. We've talked about that. And the third is from the King James Version of the Bible, the Authorized Version 1611. All three translate the word tentationem as temptation. Temp, note the first syllable, temptation. Different first syllable. Somewhere between 400 AD and 1389 AD, the word translated from the Latin into English must have mutated from tentationem to temptationem, which is really weird. And honestly, I have no idea when or how this happened. I've never read anything about it before I started this series, but it's there. And you can't ignore it. So maybe I have a next research project. I don't know. Well, but so I did go back to the original Latin. A better translation of tentationem, with the N, is trial or proof, as if to say, the man proved himself to be most honest and courageous under even the most difficult circumstances. Proved himself to be. Okay, we say, but translated word, couldn't there be other ways to translate that? We've got different words. Maybe so. So I dug back even further. It turns out that the original word, the Greek word that Jerome himself had translated into Latin, was pairasmos, or something like that, if I pronounce it, which means, check this, which means a trial, a proving. And there's a third interesting find. In 1873, a Greek researcher rediscovered a Greek manuscript known as the Didache, probably dating back to the 1st or 2nd century A.D. And in the Didache, the line we're discussing is translated as, and may you not bring us into trial. So, drum roll. Is one word right and the other word wrong? What we can say is that a temptation is one form of trial, but it's certainly not the only one. Our life is full of all kinds of trials. The loss of a loved one, an accident that was never supposed to happen, a guy in the tower on 9/11. And in both the Latin and the Greek phrasing, then here's what I'm saying. Under these circumstances, any of these, we prove ourselves by going about things in a continuously more spiritually perfected way. When we face any sort of trial of a spiritual nature, we address it with faith and with fortitude. This is our spiritual task. This is our spiritual assignment as human beings. And it's not a task for a day or for a year. It's our task for our entire lifetime. Now, my experience in sobriety is that I hit these certain points where, like, for example, I feel infinitely better than I did before I got clean and sober. But I'm not feeling that eye-opening, astounding feeling of genuine spiritual enlightenment like every day. Doesn't happen every day. Where I am today, I'm spiritually strong. I'm excited. And though I'm careful and cautious about my soul and my sobriety, I'm not concerned that I'm near a slip. But I know I've felt that uncanny feeling of enlightenment in the past, and I have faith that I'll have that sense again, just as long as I keep striving to make spiritual progress. So it's not like I've fallen, or I've lost my way, or I'm damned, or I've forgotten the things that my spiritual growth has been all about. It's just that I'm being challenged to keep at it, to have faith, to believe that God has a place in His kingdom for me already, that the rush of enlightenment will flood through me again. And it's my job to keep taking the steps to get there. And what will it be like the next time I get that deeply private, that indescribably exhilarating feeling of spiritual enlightenment? Well, that, my friends, is what we're going to talk about in our next unit. So thanks so much for watching.